Tonight on Reel to Reel, we'll visit a chapel referred to as the Tree Chapel.
We'll introduce you to a New Jersey woman who calls herself a rebel for the poor.
Mike Gallagher takes issue with liberal Catholics.
Plus, we'll focus on a group of senior citizens who are rediscovering the joys of learning.
All that and more tonight. Hello, I'm Father Dave McAllen.
And I'm Jane Rudolph. Welcome to Reel to Reel.
Good evening. Poverty, homelessness, and hunger, especially in large cities, are problems that can't be ignored. Social service agencies offer some aid to the underprivileged, but are often hampered by bureaucratic red tape, making it difficult to render the services where needed.
In Paterson, New Jersey, the poor in the area can count on the assistance of Ethel Williams to cut through that red tape when social service agencies fail to meet their needs. Food, shelter, and friendship are freely given to anyone who knocks on Ethel's door.
But more than that, she willingly challenges authorities if she feels they're unfairly treating the residents of Paterson.
I keep hearing that the economy is better. I keep hearing that there's money. I keep hearing that there's building. I keep hearing that the Army is a great place to be. I keep hearing that everything is up. Interest rates are down, everything is up. What I see where I live is that more and more families are homeless. More and more families are hungry. Families of working people are hungry. By the third week of the month, you have to decide whether or not you're going to eat or pay a bill. Your pay just does not stretch the whole way. That's what I'm seeing with all this marvelous economy.
Ethel Williams tells it like it is. Whether she's doing battle with a social service agency or giving out help and friendship to her neighbors in need, Ethel Williams is a rebel with many causes.
Basically, I'm a teacher. I've never wanted to be anything else.
Williams was born and raised in Paterson, New Jersey, and has lived in this house since she was 22. The greetings on her front door clearly show that she is an idealist, with her feet planted firmly in reality. Paterson is what Ethel Williams calls a hurting city. Once a center of the silk industry, it is now plagued with poverty, unemployment, hunger, and homelessness. There are many, many people who need help. Ethel Williams cares for her city and especially for its people. She is a one-woman army fighting for the health and happiness of her community.
And I'll call them to see if you can get the extra day at the center. Yes. That's what you want. You want 4 days at the center, or as many days as you can have at the center. Agencies can't do, really, if I'm being fair, they can't do the kind of thing that I want them to do. They are equipped to do this much. But the person who sits before them needs not only, is a whole person, and needs more. It's like specializing in medicine, you know. This guy does the rheumatoid, that guy does the cardiac, this does something else. But the whole person needs attention, needs help.
Williams has become a familiar voice in Paterson, always available to help people confront the bureaucracies of social service agencies.
That's not going to make trouble, Mrs. Evans. If the doctor thinks you have a pain, I mean, you tell the doctor that you have a pain, and you don't tell him why you have that pain, he can't read your mind. He doesn't know you fell on the bus. He might think that it's from the pacemaker being in wrong. I tell you what, you tell me all of that when I come tomorrow. I am familiar with a good many of the social service agencies that operate in Paterson. Some are happy to see me and refer people to me. Others are not that happy to see this warrior and wish I would go away.
For 32 years, she taught school, and in 1960 she helped open a school for pregnant teenagers. Her kitchen is full of pictures of the young mothers and children who still mean so much to her.
I was there 10 years and had 1,800 kids. I knew intimately 1,800 kids. I knew their mothers, their fathers, their boyfriends. I would go anywhere. They would call in the middle of the night, my mother threw me out, or something, and I would go. I'm not so sure that I would do it today, because I think the Lord, talk about the Lord must have been with me, because I went in some places in the middle of the night and nothing happened to me. I brought people here. I brought kids to my home who were minors, who just couldn't cope. And I would bring them and shelter them, and they would lie on that couch. Now, if their mother wanted to make a fuss, I would have been in trouble. But I didn't know that. I'm not sure it would have made any difference if I had known, but I didn't know it. And I did all of those things.
Williams is also the driving force behind the Catholic Community Center, a place where people can come for food, clothing, or friendly conversation.
What you hope is, not for some miraculous kind of thing, but you hope that the systems which govern our lives will be realistic and meaningful and helpful and enabling. That's what you hope for. And if all those things work, then the problems will go away. Do I think it will happen in my lifetime? I don't know. Some of it may, but a lot of it will not. Because I wonder whether realistically there is a serious intent for change. And I'm not sure that there is.
Although Williams shies away from recognition, she has been honored with several awards for her work. She was given the Pontifical Cross by Pope John Paul II, and most recently she received the Lumen Christi Award from the Catholic Church Extension Society, an award given for extraordinary service in extending the Catholic faith in America.
God is the ground of my being, my reason for being. I don't think of it every second, but it is. I take seriously the admonition from the Lord to feed the hungry and clothe the naked and visit the sick and bury the dead and smile at people and be a sister. But that's here and not here. I hope. I think so. That's what God does. That's where God is.
The people of Paterson, New Jersey have a friend in Ethel Williams, a woman who isn't afraid to stand up for the rights of friends, neighbors, and strangers.
So I don't always win, but I always give it my best shot, and I am prepared to take whatever the heat is for a principle in which I believe, right? Now, I don't fight every battle, because every battle isn't worth the blood, sweat, and tears, and headache, and stomachache, all that stuff. But when it is, you better give it your best shot, because I mean to give it mine. And the score is pretty good.
To some, Ethel Williams is a rebel, but this is one rebel fighting for many a worthwhile cause.
Because of her strong commitment to the poverty-stricken, Ethel has shown many people the road to an improved life. We'll be right back.
From the river to the ocean and everywhere in between, the Diocese of Trenton lives in its parishes, people, homes, and schools. And the Monitor newspaper is your way to keep aware of the renewal of the diocese. Lively features, accurate news reports, and columnists with something to say. Read the Monitor to find out what's happening in your church, from around the world, throughout the diocese, in your parish, from the ocean to the river. To subscribe, call area code 609-586-7400.
Designing and constructing a church is not easy, but Henry A. Daget was an architect who tackled such a task and even rose to great prominence for his work in the Delaware Valley.
Throughout Daget's architectural career, he specialized in Roman Catholic buildings, and much of his work is still visible today. So now, to tell us a little more about the career of Henry Daget, here's Father Joe Glass.
While it is only a model, it exudes a grandeur and an artistry that originated in the mind of the architect. Henry D. Daget, a native Philadelphian, was a prominent and well-known architect responsible for the design of many Roman Catholic churches and buildings in the Delaware Valley. During his long career, which began in 1888 and lasted for more than 30 years, Henry Daget designed over 60 Roman Catholic buildings, including many in the Trenton area, where he was appointed architect of the diocese. Some of his most important works include the Church of St. Francis de Sales in West Philadelphia. Completed in 1908, it is noted for its superb polychromatic interior and its roof dome constructed with Gustavino tiles. Considered to be one of Mr. Daget's principal works, it is recognized as one of the finest examples of Byzantine architecture in the country. St. Madeleine Zophie's School and Chapel, with its fireproof construction of reinforced concrete frame, floor, and roof, show Mr. Daget's use of permanent, practical materials, a method of construction for which he was far ahead of his time. An early advocate of clear span churches, he had this in mind when he designed Holy Cross Church in Germantown. With its clear span, devoid of columns, there is an unobstructed view of the sanctuary from every seat. Henry Daget designed not only churches, but many convents, rectories, schools, and institutional buildings. His life and career were marked by his ability to think clearly, and this clarity of vision shines through in the constructed growth of the Roman Catholic Church in the Delaware Valley. I'm Father Joe Glass with this moment in history.
Thanks, Father. Learning is something that we never outgrow. But for many senior citizens, physical, economic, and geographic restrictions make learning opportunities very limited.
In Washington, D.C., educational and cultural resources are made available to senior citizens by an outreach program called Museum One Incorporated. Senior citizens are not only exposed to a variety of programs such as art and dance demonstrations, they are encouraged to actively participate.
Move your arms like this. Come on. What happens is, as you hear the music and you express it in the dance form, you forget that you're moving that one arm that hurts so much in the morning. And so for a moment, it's a relief of that arthritis or of your ailment, because you're suddenly absorbed in your music that you recognize where you come from. Because I firmly believe all of us are born with a rhythm inside of ourselves.
That rhythm inside comes alive with the help of a Washington, D.C.-based arts and educational outreach program called Museum One Incorporated. Elizabeth Larson, communications specialist, and Joan Hart, executive director of Museum One, bring a variety of arts programs to people who are restricted physically, economically, or geographically. And they have a special concern for senior citizens.
I've always had an interest in working with older people, and my particular background is in art history. There was a nursing home nearby where I lived, the Washington Home, and I asked them if they would like to have me come in and give art programs for the people. Basically art presentations on, say, like Renaissance art or modern art or Impressionist art. And I thought, well, maybe I'd go a few weeks and, see what would happen. And the programs were very successful. What I really try to do is, first of all, get them to enjoy the art. Our purpose, we always like to say, is to educate and improve the quality of life of each individual. What we try to do, we try to enjoy the paintings. I give them usually some historical background, but basically we concentrate on looking at the painting itself, you know, the colors, the light, the form, and also people's feelings, you know, how do they react to the painting, how does it make them feel. And a very important part of our program is participation and discussion and exchange of opinions, not only with the teacher, but with each other. So really it's a social occasion too.
I think I remember them saying that he would hold the shears still and pull the paper against it, and not like that, but just slicing it.
That's right. And sometimes we're really reaching two generations of senior citizens. The ones I like to call the jet set, basically the ones in their 60s, recently retired. And then also we have the frail elderly. And of course, that particular segment of the senior population is growing very rapidly. And these are usually people in their 80s and 90s. It's more and more difficult for them to get around. And so it's really important to bring the art museum or the performing arts center to them, since it is difficult for them to get to the museums.
Elizabeth Larson, a dancer trained in Russian ballet, brings her own personal experience and empathy to her dance workshops.
I had an accident 10 years ago. I was hit by a car as a pedestrian. I was a bed patient for 2 months in the hospital and told I would never dance again. And I remembered I would always tell my students when I had dance classes, you've got to be able to think in order to dance. It just doesn't happen just like that. And so I thought I'd apply that myself, since I had a diplomat hit me and I had no compensation. And so I did my own therapy and proved the point that instead of not ever walking again, or if I walked again, they told me I would walk with a limp. And instead I am dancing again. So I decided I needed to reach some people who have really a problem.
Any dance can be a dance. But when you move in the middle, it's jazz.
I have worked on the basis of bringing about the history of dance so that the people can feel comfortable within their time frame and they can express themselves through that. And what I do then is more or less work on a one-to-one basis once I have explained the history.
Museum One believes that it's important to maintain consistent contact with the people who participate in the programs.
You know, when I first started out with the programs, I would go to a lot of places and maybe even just go once, but I think it's very important to have continuity, especially again with a group that is in a nursing home, and you know, a number of these people may be disoriented, and so it's important for them to get to know you as an individual.
To learn about a subject that you remember is good. To reminisce is good. But to learn a new subject brings with it new life. And I think that's the whole aim of Museum One. The arts are always creating. It's always an ongoing thing. And that's why the arts are a good source to help the older Americans pull out of that confinement and reach out a little bit more, remembering what they knew before, and to have the courage to move on. and live life again.
We know that one of the problems in old age is inactivity, so it's nice to know there are people like Joan Hart and Elizabeth Larson to help keep the energy up.
Up next is Mike Gallagher, so don't go away. A few weeks ago, we at Reel to Reel began an appeal for your financial support. Many of you responded generously, and we wholeheartedly thank you. Because of that, we're able to continue to bring you our show every week. However, we still need and appreciate your continued support. As you know, for the past 5 seasons, we've been able to bring you this weekly show, requesting only your cards and letters in return. If you're a new viewer, or if you've enjoyed the message of Reel to Reel over these past years, we'd like to thank you for watching and invite you to participate in this venture by actively supporting the show. Today, with costs rising all around us, we need your financial support. A donation of $5, $10, $20, or whatever you can send would help ensure the continued presence of this program. Send your contributions to Reel, 222 North 17th Street, room 907, Philadelphia, PA 19103, and thank you for your help. There's been a lot in the news lately about pornography and its legal implications. To shed some light on the discussions coming out of Edward Meese's report on pornography, here's Mike Gallagher.
Hello, I'm Mike Gallagher. We've got Catholic liberals, we've got Catholic conservatives. It's probably something in people's genes. It's no great cause for scandal, I think, that we're not all alike. But now there's been a development that is, I think, a cause for scandal. The operative word in Catholic liberal and Catholic conservatives seems to be becoming more and more not the first, but the second. The in thing, it seems, is to be more secular than thou, to abandon traditional Catholic moral theology, abandon even traditional Christian values in favor of a heedless agenda mongering. And the agenda is set by people who speak a different moral language. People, by the way, who are often as inconsistent as they are unchristian. Take pornography, for example. Start talking about pornography with most Catholic liberals, and they get all giggly at first. And then when they see that fanatic that you are, you're serious about it, they get serious themselves and start reading you stern lectures about the First Amendment and today Hustler and tomorrow Catcher in the Rye. So if you're a Catholic liberal, it seems the only respectable position for you on pornography is the absolutist one of the American Civil Liberties Union. Naturally, then, you have to disdain the recently released report of the Attorney General's Commission on Pornography. I'd like to protest the smug inevitability of all this. I'm a liberal Catholic, and I have no difficulty whatsoever approving the general tenor of the Commission's report. And I heartily agree with its most controversial finding, that there is a link between pornography and criminal behavior. Why this heresy? 2 reasons. First, because I try to base my judgments on traditional Catholic moral theology and not upon some arbitrary liberal agenda. Second, because my 10 years' experience as a film critic has taught me something about how media affect people. And so I realize how terrible is the threat that the pornography plague poses to fundamental Christian values. To things as the sacredness of sex and the dignity of the individual. So I suggest we forget the labels. I suggest we take the Pornography Commission's report seriously and consider how we as Christians, as citizens, can help to implement its recommendations. I'm Mike Gallagher for Arts Review.
Thank you, Mike. Earlier in our program, we viewed some examples of classic church architecture. And while it is true it's the people who make the church and not the physical structure, it's hard to overlook the beauty and complexity of so many of our churches.
For our last story tonight, come with us to a chapel in Southern California with a unique design that attracts thousands of tourists each year.
Overlooking the Pacific Ocean, the Wayfarer's Chapel was built to promote a communion of man and nature as a way of deepening one's spirituality.
Pause for a moment, Wayfarer, on life's journey. Let the beauty of holiness restore your soul. May the harmony of sky and water, leaf and rock, nourish the creation and growth of your inner being as you fare through this life and into the life beyond.
The Wayfarer's Chapel overlooks the sea at Rancho Palos Verdes, California, near Los Angeles. The chapel was built in the early 1950s as a national memorial to Emanuel Swedenborg.
Swedenborg was a noted scientist and philosopher in the early 1700s, and he was looking for the seat of the soul in the human being that led him into the realm of spirituality. We believe that we are essentially spiritual men and women, and that we continue to grow and develop forever into the kinds of persons that our God has created us to become.
The Reverend Harvey Toffel is a minister of the Church of New Jerusalem, a Protestant denomination with about 40,000 members worldwide. He has been at the Wayfarer's Chapel since 1972.
In the latter part of his life, Swedenborg wrote extensively on the range of Christian theology, and our church bases its insight into the Christian life and faith on these writings. As you look about the chapel, you will find the open Bible on the altar on which we center our belief.
The Wayfarer's Chapel was designed by Lloyd Wright, son of the famed architect Frank Lloyd Wright. Wright was told of Swedenborg's vision of a chapel of towering trees whose branches arched over and formed the roof. Wright himself spoke of the inspiration he received from the great redwoods of Northern California.
As you look about you, you will find no right angles in the chapel. Everything is on the 30-60 degree angle, as Lloyd Wright calls it. Again, the idea of the support being of trees. This is really a tree chapel. You can just now see 35 years later the trees growing, and you now feel you are sitting in the midst of a forest, in a very natural sanctuary. This was Lloyd Wright's intention when he designed the chapel, that you could sit there, the glass being simply protection from the elements, so that you could look out and beyond and see the immensity of the universe that God has created us to enjoy. One of the reasons that Lloyd Wright used the 30-60 degree angle was this is how trees grow in nature. Also, it has tremendous religious significance, representing the Trinity. The triangle is the strongest natural geometric form. You take one side of the triangle away and it falls. The same with our concept of God. God is creator, sustainer, and redeemer. Take one aspect of God away and the whole sense of God falls.
You know, my chalice is largely made of wood. It would fit right in there.
You know, you're right, Father. Well, that about wraps things up for tonight, and we are out of time. But, as always, we'd like to hear from you.
To get in touch with us, write to us here at Reel to Reel, 222 North 17th Street, room 907, Philadelphia, PA, 19103.
Or call us during business hours at area code 215-668-9842. Thanks for joining us, and we'll be looking for you once again next week. Good night.
Good night, and live in hope, for Jesus is Lord.
Travel arrangements for Reel to Reel by Atkinson and Mullen Travel of Media, PA. Phone area 215-565-7070.
Sometimes it's difficult to get free at night.
And some people don't feel safe or comfortable going out after dark.
That's why we've begun a Thursday morning prayer meeting at St. Charles Seminary. That's right, every Thursday at 10 a.m. in the chapel.
So even if you're new, come on over. We have talks for you. For more information, call 668-HOPE. See you Thursday at 10 a.m.